The Commanders are 8 to 9 point favorites, depending on where you look.
Yep.
It's the most that they've been favored at home since 2017. Prohibitive favorites here. Looks like, the offense is rolling. Should be an easy win. But give us a status on Brian Robinson. Or we obviously know they lost Jonathan Allen this week. What's the health status right now?
B-Rob is going to go, in my estimation, and I think everybody on the beat believes that as well. We talked to him on Wednesday, very encouraged. He's been out there practicing. He's going to be out there on Sunday. I think the big question mark is going to be Dorrance Armstrong. He did not practice on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday, so he's dealing with that injury right now. So I'll be surprised if Dorrance plays. But other than that, Luvu and Wagner, they had a kind of veteran rest day yesterday. They're both going to play. So for the most part, I think it's just going to be Dorrance Armstrong monitoring.
What's the plan for – you don't replace Jonathan Allen. The guy's a leader. He's been a multiple-time Pro Bowler, but they have to replace him somehow. I saw your interview with Johnny Newton. He seems like a very capable and eager young kid. But, again, he's a rookie. He's not going to bring you the same sort of production as Jonathan Allen. What does that plan look like? Newton and who else? Is it Mathis in a rotation there?
Yeah, so, thank goodness they had some depth at the defensive tackle spot, because going in you had Payne, Allen, Fedarian Mathis, and Johnny Newton. They drafted Johnny Newton, obviously, in the draft with the second-round pick, and it's going to be Deron Payne and then the rotational pieces of a Johnny Newton and Fedarian Mathis going on Sunday. And, they drafted Johnny Newton, that second-round pick, for a reason. Remember, he was pegged to be a first-round pick, but he was dealing with that foot injury that made him kind of slide down to the second round, and he was just a beast in the Big Ten. And they think there's going to be no drop-off. Johnny believes there's going to be no drop-off either. He's excited about the opportunity. As you mentioned, we talked to him on Wednesday, and he knows he has a big opportunity, and there's a lot of pressure, per se, on him to kind of fill the void of a Jonathan Allen, who's a Pro Bowl-type player. And, Carolina, they're going to want to run the football. Chuba Hubbard, very underrated running back. I think he's had 4 straight games with at least 90 yards. So they've been trying to play a little bully ball in Carolina, of really trying to establish the run, take some pressure off Andy Dalton. So I think priority number one for Washington on Sunday is going to try to stop that run with Chuba Hubbard.
Scott, did you get a sense of relief at all this week from the defense that, look, this week we don't have to chase around Lamar Jackson. We don't have to track down, even though he wasn't effective against them, Kyler Murray. There's no real threat of a run from Andy Dalton. It's a different sort of quarterback approach. Does it seem like that's just easier for them? They can get more of a pass rush on him because he doesn't have the escapability of those other players they've faced.
Absolutely, guys. Those dual threat quarterbacks, those dynamic type quarterbacks, they just put so much pressure on a defense. And when you have an Andy Dalton that doesn't really necessarily move around too well as a pocket passer, much easier for a defensive line blitz to get home. And, it was interesting to listen to defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. yesterday. He basically picked 4 plays that really were the difference in that game on Sunday. And it came down to communication with that Ravens loss. And I think for the most part, they were encouraged with the way they played. But, they let Zay Flowers do his thing, and there were some communication breakdowns. They get that cleaned up against Carolina. And Carolina's really banged up as well. Deontay Johnson, their wide receiver, hasn't practiced all week. He's questionable to play on Sunday. So in terms of a get-right spot and maybe a smash spot, there's no reason why Washington should not win this game going away. Carolina defense is atrocious. They've given up at least 34 points in 3 straight games, where the Washington offense has scored at least 34 points in 3 of the last 4 games. So there's no reason why Washington can't score at will against Carolina, and it's going to come down to the Washington defense doing their part, getting some stops, getting some turnovers.
Scott, your best guess at this point, do we see Manny Forbes and or Jamin Davis in this game Sunday?
I'm going to see Manny.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say they're, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think they're very happy with their cornerback situation, where Noah I has been stepping up and doing well, and then Benjamin St. Juste, and then maybe you see a Jamin because of the injury to Dorrance. So because he could be in that pass rush that hybrid type mode. So maybe a Jamin. I don't think you'll see an Emmanuel Forbes. I just think that ship has sailed, guys.
Wow.
It might have sailed in terms of his future, but if you believe Dan Quinn at all, and I know coaches just say anything, I think they haven't been thrilled with him, but they wanted a little heavier package to deal with Derrick Henry. So I don't know. We'll see.
And maybe it's a reset too. Maybe it's, again, you sit him down for a week, you kind of collect his thoughts and do those teaching moments. And they're still very positive with Emmanuel Forbes when he was asked about Emmanuel during the press conference on Wednesday. So I just think in terms of depth chart wise, Emmanuel Forbes is definitely not top 2, top 3 cornerback right now for this team.
So Deontay Johnson's been a pretty pivotal piece for this Carolina Panthers offense. He didn't practice yesterday. Are the Commanders preparing for him to be there on Sunday or not? Because if he doesn't pratice today, most likely he just doesn't go on Sunday.
Right. No, they're preparing like he's going to play. And Joe Wood Jr. was very complimentary of Deontay Johnson during his press conference yesterday. Basically, that was the first time Joe Wood Jr. actually kind of saw some tape on Deontay because he was with Pittsburgh for so many years and he never really had to deal with him in Dallas. So he came away very impressed. The route runner, the separation that Deontay gets on his route. So, yeah, you're going to have to game plan for Deontay Johnson acting like he's going to play because he's such a weapon on that Carolina offense where they don't really have a lot of weapons other than Chuba Hubbard. So they're going into this like Deontay's going to play. We're going to know more, obviously, by the end of the day tomorrow.
Hey, I'm curious because it's somebody that we talked about a lot. There was a lot of hype, at least catching the football. At what point will we see more out of Ben Sinnott?
Yeah, you know what? I'm sure you guys have seen this, but he's a tremendous blocker. There's been a couple of run plays this year where he really sealed off a gap and sealed off a linebacker or a cornerback to spring a McNichols or a Brian Robinson Jr. He's been very impressive from a blocking aspect. And you see a Zach Ertz, he's staying healthy, which has been a key element to this offense because Zach Ertz, he's had a prone of injury history with him, and he's been tremendous, staying healthy. He's been that security blanket. So I think this is what the plan is all along, where Sinnott is a rookie, still learning, still growing, watching, being a sponge to a veteran like a Zach Ertz. He's going to get his moments. But when he's out there, Ben Sinnott has been very impressive as a blocker. So I know the coaching staff has been very pleased with Ben Sinnott.
Well, somebody who's taking advantage of the opportunity is Noah Brown. He had 8 targets last week in the loss to the Ravens. Looks like he's really becoming the number 2 wideout behind Terry McLaurin.
Again, kudos to Adam Peters and that staff for doing their due diligence. Obviously, Noah Brown was a training camp casualty for the Houston Texans, but they brought him in and they gave him a chance, thinking he'd be a good fit in this offense. And you know what? It's paid off. He's developing a rapport with Jaden Daniels in terms of timing, ball placement, and he's been a great compliment to Terry McLaurin. You throw in a Luke McCaffrey. This offense is humming right now. I love what Cliff Kingsbury is doing. Some of the play calling, that flea flicker screen was unbelievable. It's a fun offense to watch. And how long it's been since we've said that, guys, in this town, watching a Washington Commanders offense on Sundays. This is a fun offense, and finally they're scoring points, pushing the ball down the field, some big explosive chunk plays. It's very fan-friendly in terms of enjoyable watching this offense go.
Well, no doubt about it. We talked about it earlier that the most points that they were scoring per game in basically the last decade was when Kirk was quarterback, and it was right around 22 points a game, and now they're at 30 points a game. It's night and day from what we've been used to. Thanks, Scott.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
Thanks, man.